How are you, Primary 5? Today we have a story session. We will introduce chapter 4 with the name Nothing to See. We will start by revising some questions from the last session. The first one, how was Captain Humble? As you know, Captain Humble, he was a tall, red-faced man. He was the captain of our ship, the Forfarshire. What happened to the engines of the ship? One of the engines had already stopped and the other one was working very badly. What happened when the lantern was burning? As you know, in the room upstairs in the lighthouse, the big silver mirrors started to move slowly around it. What did William hope? He hoped the poor sailors could see this light. And the last one, why did the engine stop? Because they were too old. Okay, we will discuss what happened in this chapter, but first let's revise what happened in the last session. As you know, Captain Humble asked Mr. Daniel Donovan to help him check the engines because one of them had completely broken and the other one was working very badly. The real engineer told Mr. Donovan that the engines had stopped because they were old and they can't do anything to the engines now in the middle of the sea and in the middle of the storm. Captain Humble became very angry. He pushed Mr. Daniel away. Mr. Daniel went out. He was badly frightened. His hands were shaking and he can't stand in this weather. He stared at the sea and saw a little light flashing on, off, on, off. What do you think this light was? This is what we will know, but first let's return back to our lighthouse to see what was happening there. But first let's identify some new words I have. The first one, tie. Tie. It's a verb. I'll say I want to tie my boat to the rock, not to lose it. So tie mean to put ropes around something to hold it still or to pull it. Okay, so this is tie. Let's move to oar. Oar. I'll give you a sentence first saying I use 2 oars to row my boat. So what I mean by oar, it's a long piece of wood that you use to move your boat through water. So this is oar. What about ready? I'll give you a sentence. May say that Grace's mother made drinks ready for them. So ready mean waiting for them. Okay, so let's move to know what happened in this part. In this time, at 2:30 in the morning, Grace was sleeping in her room in the lighthouse. Let's describe her room. Her room was a small, tidy room with white walls. There were some books on her desk and some seabirds' eggs on her table. Her father woke her up because he needed her help. She got up quickly. In front of her door, William Darling stood with a candle. He was wearing his big coat and heavy boots. His face was tired and wet. In this time the storm was very bad, so they had to tie the boat down to the rock, not to lose it. It was normal for Grace to get up in the night because there was always work on the lighthouse and the sea didn't wait for the morning. So she went downstairs, put her coat and tied her hair under her hat. The wind was so strong it nearly lifted hair off her feet. Her coat and dress blew out behind her like paper, and the rain hit her face like small stones. This means that the weather was really terrible weather. Grace and her father walked to the boathouse. In the light of the lanterns they were carrying, they could see the great waves that crashed against the rocks. William shouted at Grace because she couldn't hear him. He wanted to ask her for something, but she couldn't hear him because the noise of the wind and the sea was too loud, too terrible. Grace helped her father to tie the boat down to the rock, and they tied the oars too. Then they carried all the other things to the kitchens. They can't keep the other things outside in this terrible weather. Before they went back in the house, Grace stared out into the night and saw big black waves about 10 or 20 meters high. But thanks God she could see no lights, no ships. Of course, no ship could live in that sea tonight. They went in. Her mother, Thomasin, as you know, had warm drinks ready for them. Grace asked her father to go to sleep, and she finished her drink quickly, changed her wet clothes, and went alone to the room upstairs in the lighthouse. The room with the big windows. In this time, the wild wind screamed and shook the glass. All this happened. It was at 3:30 in the morning. Guys, yes, guys, what do you think will happen after this? You have to imagine and try to tell me later what do you think will happen. Okay, now you have to practice some questions. It will be your homework. Okay, you have to read page 18 and 19 carefully and then answer this question. And after this, you have to read page 20 and answer the other questions. If you want any help, you can ask me in the next session. Thank you, guys. See you later.